So for our second model, we're going to go for an autumn theme, which is very, very similar to how these elves were painted, or not painted but designed for the Hobbit movies. What we're going to do is we're going to start on the cloak again, and I've got a really, really rich dark red. It's one of the old Games Workshop paints, mine. Credit to them, you know, I know a lot of people complain about the price, but they last a very long time. So, you know, when you're spending a couple of quid on a pot, but that pot lasts you for years, well, you know, for me that's an absolute bargain. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're just going to paint this cloak, and again we're going to let the cloak dry off, and then we will do the armour as well. So I will let you guys know when that one is finished. Alrighty, so with our autumn coloured or themed High Elf, what we want to do is we want to kind of take inspiration from how these guys looked in the Unexpected Journey movie. So what we're going to do is we're going to go for a really, really muted, much darker metal for this guy. So we're going to be using our bolt gun metal. I think it's called, oh no, it's lead belcher it's changed to. It's this one here, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to just paint over the armour here with the lead belcher, and we're going to mute it down further still. This is a similar technique to what I use when I'm doing my any of my Urukai, because those guys, you know, they have a metal armour, but it's you know, certainly as far as the movies are concerned, what with the kind of the cinematics and the lighting, it's a very, very dark black metal. It's going to be slightly different look in the end with the High Elves to the Uruks, but this initial stance kind of stage is very much the same. So I'm just going to go over and finish up painting this guy, and then we will carry on. Right guys, so whilst the armour is drying, what we're going to do is we're just going to do some work on the cloak at the bottom. We're using a Evil Sun Scarlet, which is a much lighter colour, but we're also going to use, this is one of the old paints, which is the Fiery Orange, or kind of equivalent Bright Orange. I think it's kind of like a, is it Fire Dragon's Orange or something like that? I can't remember. But a very, very bright orange. What I'm actually going to do, if you can just see the palette here, is I want to work the two colours in partially together. So I'm just going to take some of the orange. I'm just going to pop it onto the palette. My orange is very thick, and any of you brush lovers are going to be crying at what I'm doing with my brush right now, but don't worry, I will wash it off. Is we're just going to mix the two colours together in the middle, and then what we're going to do, surprise, surprise, is we're just going to do that same wet blending highlight that we've done before. So we're just going to kind of bring it in. My Evil Sun's Scarlet is slightly lighter. What I want to do here is try and capture a bit more of a what I will call an autumn gradient. Then also use that lighter colour, that kind of mixer, and just put it more at the base of the cloak. There we go. And now we can kind of just start that blend there. It looks quite messy at the moment. That's fine, it's not a problem, because it will neaten up significantly once it dries. So what I'm doing here is, rather than worrying too much about the creases and the folds of the cloak, I'm just trying to focus on the kind of overall gradient between the two. I'm just going to finish up this guy, alright, and then we'll see where we go from there. Okay guys? Alrighty guys, so this is where we're up to so far with our autumn theme, and what we're going to do now is we're just going to really mute down further the male, or the I guess, the plate armour. So we're just going to take some Nuln Oil, which is, again, another shade. I do love my shades. I'll use them a lot in these videos. We're just going to take some Nuln Oil, and we're going to be quite liberal over the top of the armour. Alright, but I'm just going to carry on with this and apply a fairly liberal layer all over. Alright, and then I'll show you what we get once we're done. Right guys, so our mail is nearly dry, not quite yet, but what we're going to do is we're just going to work on the cloak around the outside. So I've mixed up a darker grey here, so we're just going to paint that on here, just around the edges. But I'm just going to do everything in this kind of darker grey here. So just on the inside of the cloak there, just see if I can get a little bit more and just neaten that up. There we go. It's always very easy to neaten things up with a solid colour. Obviously, now that we've done that kind of wet mix on the bottom of the cloak, or whatever on earth it is that these guys are wearing, it's best not to muck it up. Right, so I'm just going to continue painting along the edges here because I can't see particularly well. It's very worth putting on probably at least 2 coats of the Nuln Oil, just to really give you a very, very muted effect, and then you'll see how that looks once we highlight it up. Alright, but I'll finish off this cloak, put on another coat of the Nuln Oil on the armour, and then we'll see how that looks. Alright guys. So what we're going to do, whilst I've got that Nuln Oil drying, take a slightly lighter grey now. This isn't quite Dawnstone, but it is slightly lighter. I'm just going to just draw in some of those highlights. The grey is largely dry, so I'm not really going to get much of a blend here, but that's fine because first of all I'm going to be using a wash in a minute, and secondly I do want it to be slightly lighter as the dominant colour. If I just use a little bit of water here, that should still give us. Let's just wash it in, pull out the water. There we go, it's quite nice. Just do a little bit more at the edge there. So that is a trick you can actually do, is you basically take a little water, let it run into the crease, and then very, very quickly use the kind of capillary action on the brush to kind of suck out the water with the ink in it, and it will just blend a little bit more. Right guys, so hopefully what you can see there, this little section here is a little bit wet, but the rest of it is dry, is that we've got a really very, very muted metal. It's not particularly shiny. That's what we're really going for there. Alright. So what I'm going to do just whilst I'm waiting for that to dry, it's pretty much done, but it should just take a couple more minutes, is we want to use washes on our cloak at the bottom here, and then on our cloak on the side as well. Alright, I'm just going to take some of our Seraphim Sepia, and we're just going to paint that over. It's not too dark, it's just a really warm shade paint. Alrighty guys, so what we're going to do now, the ink is pretty much dry at the bottom, but I'm just going to wait a little longer, is we're going to do the highlights on the armour, so we can just bring it up a little bit now. Alright, I have two very light metals that I use. I use Rune Fan Steel and mithril silver, the old mithril silver. I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be the same colour. However, certainly with as far as my paint's concerned, this one is a little thicker, this one is a little thinner, and it is a layer paint. So I'm using Runefang steel here. Now I'm going to use the thinnest brush that I've got, just on the edge of the brush. You can kind of see where it does pour and it is a little thinner there, but we do want it on the edge of the brush. And what I want to do is, rather than painting it over the whole mail, I'm just wanting, as neatly as I possibly can, to kind of edge. Can you see how I'm just painting over the edge there, guys? Just to bring in a highlight to that mail. And then we can just do along the bottom here where it's dry as well. There we go, so just going along the edge. There. I'll carry on with this, but hopefully you can see that at the top there, where it's making a difference. And you can see I try and get my brush almost not quite parallel to the model, just so it catches a little bit more on those edges there. Alright guys, so whilst our highlights are drying, which should be pretty quick, we're just going to go over the Drakenhof Nightshade on the back of the cloak. Now, Drakenhof Nightshade, I know I've said before, is a very dark wash. It is a very, very thick, strong wash, so we don't want to use too much. Just going to pop some on my palette there. So I'm just going to paint over here. And again, you can see there's a very immediate, very strong contrast there. You don't really want more than one cloak with this particular one. And you'll notice I'm not painting it particularly thick either, because I don't really want it to run too much, other than in the creases where it's necessary. Alright, we will let this guy dry off. There we go. Alright guys, so the washes are getting there, slowly drying, but enough so that I can just do some highlights on the sash. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take some Dawnstone, which is that really light grey. But what we're going to do is just on the sash, just on those raised edges. See if I can get a little bit more of that. There we go. Just going to drag it along and highlight there. Alright, and then what we can also do is just here on the edge of the cloak, we can just kind of dust that on there as well. We can go over and give it a little bit more. So I'm just going to go over, do the sword, do the hands, do the feet. Just our kind of fairly standard things are always going to be the same. And then I will show you guys them together.